Early in the morning, just about. That doesn't make sense. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. This is the Learn with John Eick podcast, and today is day 77, I think, on my 180-day drive to school. It is a beautiful morning. It's been raining all weekend here in Sacramento, California. I got some, blue skies on the horizon. I gotta pay attention to the road. It's a Monday. It's a Monday morning. I got 5 work days ahead of me. I got 5 days on the other side of that. And I think it's winter break. I think winter break is 10 work days away. But who's counting? Oh, that is a terrible place to park, brother. Somebody swerved off the freeway over there and parked into the bushes. I hope they're okay. They got a tow truck on scene. Well, that's a random side thought. Well, here's what we're doing. We got, it's day 77-ish. I think it's 77. Which means we got 3 more days left of my 30 days between days 50 and 80, where we talk about organizational culture. After that, I don't know what we'll talk about. There's been a bunch of days where I wanted to just talk about stuff, but I'm like, oh, that doesn't really fit the vibe. So, I don't know what I'll talk about after this. If you got thoughts, hit me up. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about. Today, I'm going to talk about campfires. I feel like in the Stone Age, whatever campfire you huddled around, that was the information you had access to. That's what shaped your paradigm, your reality, and I think throughout the ages, it's kind of also been that way. Whatever group you're part of, that's the group that shapes your paradigm, shapes the way you see reality. And then you see some topics, though, that cross over from campfire to campfire. Like, regardless of which campfire you're huddled around, there's some certain truths that seem to exist in both arenas. And I'll tell you what, so in the modern sense, the campfire is probably the TikToks, the Twitters, the podcastosphere, whoever you're listening to, whatever you're into, that's one of your campfires. Now, I'm not saying you only gotta have one campfire, because in the modern age, my God, we're part of a multitude of campfires. But so I'm reading this book not too long ago by this cat named Jordan something or other, Peterson, that's his name. Super conservative thought typer, and I'm like, I'm not a conservative thought typer, so I was like, oh, let me read what the other guy's thinking about, right? Because nothing's good or bad unless compared to something else. I want to see what that dude was thinking about. But he had some cool thoughts, right? And then the other day, I am on the TikTokies, and I watched a little video by, what's that dude's name? Big tall guy. Oh man, it's gonna ruin the podcast if I can't remember the guy's name. Motivational speaker dude. Anyway, it'll come to me, right? Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins. Now look, back in 1987, my mom had the Tony Robbins cassette tape library of motivational talks on the. It was early podcast, right? Because it was all on cassette tapes, right? So what I realized is here's this, super motivational speaker type guy, Tony Robbins, who gets in everybody's grill and is just be the best version of yourself. You could do this. And this cat, not Jordan Peele, because that would be funny. Jordan Peterson, who's a super nerdsville, college professor type, who's, super down the rabbit hole of research-based and evidence-based everything. And they both are saying the same thing. They're different campfires, but they are riffing on the same thing. So Jordan Peterson says in his book, 12 Rules for Life or something like that. It's not a bad book. He's like, hey, look, let me spin you out 350 million. Did I tell you this story already? 350 million years of crustacean evolution. He says the lobsters have been on planet Earth for 350 million years. The lobsters are the OG crustacean. Let's take just a checker for the neck up. If the lobsters are 350 million years old, just remember the dinosaurs were here 65 million years ago. Look, the lobsters have been doing what they've been doing for a long time. So they got their routines laid down. And he says the lobsters have this really interesting pecking order, and when they approach one another to determine who has dominance over the other, they flare their backs up like this. They put their little claws out like that, and they posture. And it is that posturing that gives them, the rush of dopamine and endorphins, and sends out these pheromones and signals that the other lobster then goes, oh, whoa, hey, back down, lobster boy. I guess you're the dominant one. I will let you have this nesting area. So Jordan Peterson says, look, what you got to do is you need to walk into every room in the world. Every time you walk into a place in life, you need to walk in and put your shoulders back. Breathe deeply. And send off the signal to everyone in the room that this lobster has arrived, and y'all back down. And he says that there's some research behind this, and that it's legit, even in humans. And I thought, oh, that's kind of a pretty cool piece of advice. In fact, I gave that piece of advice to some teachers who were going to be presenting at the staff meeting not so long ago. I told them about the lobsters, and now every time I see them, they're like, lobster up, which I love. I love this idea that, like, fake it till you make it. Put your shoulders back, take a deep breath, and you will send out a signal to the audience that you are to be listened to. And that audience then will send you back a signal that says, we are listening. And if they send you back a we are listening cue, it actually pumps you up even more. Yeah, they are listening. And then you get a little more pumped up, and then they get a little more cue from you that's like, wow, that person on the stage is really pumped up. We're really listening, which is a feedback loop. Now, I told you about the feedback loop just the other day from a different book called A Culture Code by Daniel Goyle. So those are about belonging cues. This lobster thing is about, like, positional dominance. Okay, check. Well, Tony Robbins, he's like, hey, I've been using this piece of information my whole adult career. He's coached, U.S. presidents and all kinds of important type of peoples to be important. And he's like, I tell them to put their shoulders back, take deep breaths, and visualize success. And he goes, I've been doing it for years. And then some researchers out of Harvard did this study, and they found that when people do this, it actually releases dopamine and reduces serotonin and increases testosterone, and it actually makes you feel like a winner, like you're gonna be dominant, like you're gonna take over the room. He's like, I can't believe this thing that I came up with for 3 decades now. Some Harvard researchers finally researched and found out that it's true, that when you put your shoulders back and you breathe deeply and you visualize success, that you will actually release certain hormones in your body, and also suppress other depressive hormones in your body. You will feel better, and because you feel better, it will create this feedback loop of, like, I feel better, I'm projecting goodness, and people are starting to receive it, and they're signaling back to me that you are crushing it, and which makes you want to crush it even more. And Tony Robbins says on this little TikTok, he's like, yes, Harvard has validated what I invented 3 decades ago. Jordan Peterson says it was invented 350 million years ago, and it doesn't really matter who invented it, because the reality is it's just true. The reality is, whatever campfire you're in, somebody in your campfire has told you, fake it till you make it, put your shoulders back and breathe deeply, get up on stage, believe in yourself. People have been teaching that lesson in every campfire, in every community, since the beginning of time, and predating all of time, all the way back to the beginning of the crustacean world, when the lobsters invented it, I suppose. And I think what's interesting, as I kind of dwindle down to these 30-day riffs on what makes an organizational culture a place where we want to work, I think I've talked about, like, how to reduce fear a little bit in the workplace, and I've talked a little bit about how courage is poured into one another in the workplace. And I think this piece kind of matters, that there are these universal truths about how we can make ourselves feel confident, or feel strong, or feel successful, or feel courageous. There are these kind of universal truths that people have regardless of what campfire they're from. And I think what is important in an organizational culture, or to an organizational culture, is that we're willing to share these truths with one another, that we say to each other, hey man, I recognize you're about to go on stage, and I bet you feel a little nervous about that. Hey, let me pour a little something into you. I read this book once that said this thing. Or, hey, Tony Robbins says that if you do this, that, and the other, and you visualize a time where you felt proud. Well, hey, as your colleague, I'm going to tell you, you should be really proud of yourself for this one thing that I saw you do last week. Now, with that in mind, go up on stage and crush it today. And whether that on stage is, running an assessment, small group, or presenting at a staff meeting, if you have people around you that are willing to share these tips, these tricks that make one another feel more confident, then that's a good organizational culture. So I guess what I would say is that we need to create these organizational cultures that aren't so goal-oriented or outcome-oriented that we forget about the reality of the people that are trying to meet these goals. That we need to look at the people in the organization and see them as people who are somewhere in the stage of multiple millions of years of human evolution or whatever it is, and say, hey, don't forget, the following is true. You will feel more confident if. You will be more confident when you do the following things that we have to remember to not just set goals for each other and give each other just the strategies of skill-based strategies, but the strategies that help pour into personal confidence and personal success. Don't just give people, well, if you use this one instructional strategy, no. Hey, here's a work-life balance strategy. Hey, here's a how to feel confident strategy. Hey, here's a gratitude strategy, so you remember to be grateful for your what you have, so you'll feel good about waking up in the morning and doing that, whatever it is that you need to do. All right, I don't know why I wanted to share that campfire thing. It just struck me that we all kind of come from different places and maybe arrive at the same thing at the end. So it's important to remind one another of that and be of a place that does that for one another, that says, hey, whatever campfire you're from, you're here at this campfire, in this organization, in this school, in this culture, and in this organization, we pour into each other and remind each other to be confident and to use these tips and tricks that make us feel like we can do anything. All right, my name is John Eick. You can find me on the Twitters at John_Eick. I'm gonna take a big breath, put my shoulders back, and try and crush this day. All right, thanks for the signaling cue for telling me I can do it. All right, I'll catch you next time.